Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Victoria Esquimalt Police Board meeting, September 20th. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of the Lekwungen-speaking people's homelands, the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, that we are guests here on the homelands, that we're grateful to the Songhees and Esquimalt for welcoming us and for stewarding these territories for thousands of years so that we have a beautiful and fruitful place to live, and that we're walking as a police department a path of reconciliation with the nations on whose lands our men and women serve. With that, I would love for a motion to approve today's agenda. Thank you, Doug, seconded by Paul. Are there any additions to the agenda? Please, Barb?
No, I just wanted to say that I will be leaving.
Oh, yes, sorry, Barb will be leaving at 5:45 because of the day of the morning for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and many council meetings were rescheduled from yesterday to today. Barb was one of them, so we will wish her well as she heads out. Thank you for the reminder. Even though you just reminded me, I already forgot. All those in favor of the agenda, any opposed? None opposed, that carries. The first item we have is a presentation from the Greater Victoria Police Diversity Advisory Committee, and we have Sergeant Ames here to make a presentation.
Okay, I'll just move to the front so I don't twist around.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul.
And then,
Can we sit here?
no, this is just fine. I should be able to see yep, I can see that just fine.
Perfect. I think Paulette's got it up for Paulette. It's that's online as well, right? I think the answer is probably yes.
Probably yes, yeah,
Okay,
okay.
please proceed. Thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks for all your work.
Thank you. So my DAC partner and co-chair Brenda Freeman was hoping to be here tonight as well to join in presenting to all of you, but car troubles have foiled her, so she's currently waiting for her car to get out of the shop. We were invited to come and just give a little bit of an update to the police board on what the GVP DAP, or the Diversity Advisory Committee, has been up to over the last year and a half. So I'll just get you to roll into the first one. Yeah. So it can sort of be summed up under three different categories, which was, first of all, our community consultation project, community engagement, just getting out and reconnecting with people after 2 years of all of us not really being able to do that. And then also kind of looking at the GVP DAC and kind of considering what our priorities are over the next little while, looking at our membership and kind of considering how representative we were of the community as it grows and changes. Next one, please. So a huge part of my first year on the DAC was taken up with our community consultation project. It was something that I wanted to take up. It was work that was started by the previous co-chairs, Michelle, Joyce, and Dr. Musa Magasa. And the goal of it really was to kind of reach out and get a sense of how well people feel that they're represented by their police departments, how comfortable they feel approaching and phoning for help with our police departments, and sort of what people felt would help us feel more accessible. So, if you could just go back for me, thanks. As Dr. Magasa was a former DAC member and is used to working with the police, he sort of understands our language, but he is also a very involved community member. So, and he's also an expert on equity, diversity, and inclusion. He is just, he's a super talented facilitator. And so when we were looking at people to help us put this whole thing together, Musa was kind of a given. So we engaged Musa to help guide our subcommittee as we develop the consultation project. Thanks, Colette. Next one, please. So we held a series of consultations. I think probably most of the board members are somewhat familiar. We met with different ethnic groups, different sort of areas, different people of sort of different kinds of diversity within the community. We formatted it in kind of, we had in-person sessions, and we also had virtual sessions to accommodate different people's comfort levels. And the questions were the same for everybody. And basically it was, what are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? And what can we do better? So Dr. Magassa formulated all of the consultation responses into a report. And these were the themes that came out of the consultation. So the first theme was people sort of talked about their experiences engaging with the police, and it was a mixed bag. There were some people who were really appreciative of their engagement with the police, and then there were obviously people who thought that we could do better. And our interest was really in how can we do better, and what came out of that was sort of what follows. So I thought it was really interesting, and I think to me it sort of highlighted that we can always do better. There's always more to learn, but also there's a lack of understanding in terms of what our training is. So one of the recommendations down the road was that we be a little bit more public about the things that we can be public about, so people have a better understanding of what we are, the tools that we have on our tool belt when we show up at somebody's home or when we respond. Because people felt that there was a real lack of mental health training, and right from the get-go, right from when a police officer first goes to the Justice Institute, we get various forms of mental health training, crisis intervention, de-escalation training, whether it be crisis communication, trauma-informed policing. So I think if people had an understanding that we do have those tools in our tool belt, that would be helpful. We also have to stay current, and there's also more to learn. So that's one of the themes. So the next one was police interactions with unhoused people. So I think, and again, from different sides of the perspective, interestingly, a lot of newcomers felt very intimidated by Greater Victoria's Unhoused. And on the other side of that, people who work within that population or people who are part of that population obviously want to see compassion and understanding, and they want to see us being able to access resources that can help them. So those were things that came with that. And then effective and inclusive communication with some community members. So again, whether it be engaging with somebody who is, whether they're gender non-binary or whether they're transitioning, or it really sort of came down to understanding the importance of pronouns to some people, but also even just basic language skills, having access to language services so that there's communication roadside for somebody who may not be fluent in English. The next was representation in the ranks of police. So obviously recruitment, hiring, promotion, retention. One thing that I was very touched by and that really made an impression on me was when we were at the Sikh temple up on Topaz and working with South Asian population. People were so very proud of Chief Manik. It meant so much to them that somebody who looked like them was held a position of leadership in the community. And so just working harder at expanding diversity within police agencies, and also being more creative in terms of making us attractive to other communities and examining potential barriers to hiring. And then the newcomer experience, again, understanding, especially when we have so many people coming from conflict zones, also talking to people who were survivors of the 60s scoop or children of residential school survivors, just that understanding that uniforms can be really impactful. Somebody from a conflict zone, one lady talked about how, to her, uniforms meant soldiers, and just understanding just how impactful and how immediately triggering some of those things can be. And so I think if you approach a situation with understanding, then that also brings compassion and a level of patience. So next one, please, Colette. So when we presented to the area chiefs our findings, the DAC made a series of recommendations. One of those always is education, right? Education always comes out of every report. Really, we can never have enough. Increase ongoing compulsory education and training for police officers and all of those areas we were talking about. Strategies for responding to mental health emergencies. Again, I think this is somewhere where maybe people just don't understand the resources that we do have, and we never have enough resources. But I think if people were aware of our mental health car, police officer paired with mental health nurse, and some of the other crisis response resources that we have access to, then that would probably help here. But again, I think mental health is such a crisis in our communities. Paying attention to increasing tools, and one of the things that came out of it was the idea of sort of not a mentorship, but almost sort of like a buddy system, right? Like having a mentor when somebody gets brought to the hospital. So somebody who's a peer, sort of peer-to-peer support. So somebody who has been through kind of the mental health grinder, if you will, who can kind of help somebody when they get brought in and support them as they move through. Let them know, this is what's going to happen next. This is why they need to do this, just to kind of reduce anxiety and educate as somebody who's moving through that process. So just kind of being creative in terms of services that we offer and thinking a little bit beyond what we already have. Again, recruiting. We talked already about, looking at what our barriers are. How do we reduce those barriers? How do we make policing more attractive to communities that might not otherwise see policing as something that they would want to go into, or maybe don't understand that policing is an option for them. Increasing community engagement. We heard quite clearly people want us to meet them where they live. So sending police officers to community events, hosting our own community events, being present at other community events, just to meet and engage with people. Some people like to see us in uniform, some people don't like to see us in uniform, but regardless, I think showing willingness and interest in learning about other cultures, I think is always a positive step for police. Communication. To me, that's the piece where I think we can make people better aware of what program we already do have, and help people understand how they can communicate with us, how they can reach out to us with their thoughts and ideas. And then, of course, the final piece is always accountability. So, but especially my job is I'm the staff sergeant in charge of our professional standards section. So I have a pretty good understanding of just how many layers of accountability we have, but I think a lot of people don't understand. So something as simple as making sure that local police agencies have links to the OPCC website or the IIO, I think would help people. And even just, a drop down that explains, what our current layers of accountability are. Okay, this one for that. So one of the recommendations that came out of the DAC was a proposal that was presented to the area chiefs for a regional diversity coordinator to work with the area departments. This is such a compressed area with so many different communities in it. We all deal with similar issues, and the people on the DAC just felt that it made a lot of sense to have a regional coordinator to make sure that we are all on the same page. If we are developing training, it just makes sense to deliver it across the region. Again, this is sort of continuing work that Dr. Magassa and Constable Joyce started. They had put in a proposal to have a full-time police chair. But to me, I'm somebody with an interest. I have a very strong interest in this area and furthering and equity, diversity, and inclusion within the police department as well as within our communities. But I'm not an expert, and I'm certainly, I don't have education in terms of putting training together. So our thought was to hire somebody who does have expertise in those areas to serve all of the region. So that was put forward to the area chiefs. The area chiefs supported that. And so I think where we're at right now is looking at funding going into the 2023 budget year. So we're all really excited to see where that goes. Next one, please, Colette. This is what we've been up to. So, going along with meeting people where they live and finding ways to engage with the community. The DAC had representation at a number of these events. It's been a busy year, but it's been really fun. So Welcome Day at Victor Brodeur is an excellent event, and we'll definitely be marking it for our calendars next year. Again, just in terms of the incredible diversity of all of the people who showed up there, I think it was a really positive thing for us to be there, and just, for people to be able to come up and chat with us, whether they be brand new refugees in the country or Indigenous peoples there to share their culture with all of the newcomers. It was a really cool event. Alex Omeding, who is one of our DAC members, organized a lunch at Pacific Christian School to celebrate Black History Month. So so DAC members and the other police officers from across the region served lunch to the kids and had a great time. We went to a couple of festivals put on by different groups of from African descent. So the Yahagi Celebrates event was a fantastic night, and they actually honored the DAC with an award for community engagement. So that was really wonderful. And I won't go into all of them, but you can see we've been busy this year. We worked very hard to be included in the Pride Festival. That's been a little bit of a broken relationship for a few years now. I think our Pride Society here in Victoria was one of the few to allow police officers to be a part of the festival. So we were really proud of that, and we were really excited to be involved. We were invited to walk in the Pride Parade as change makers. So Deputy Laitman was there, as well as some other DAC members, and we had a booth. We were really pleased to be there. And yeah, that's a little summary of some of the things we've been up to this year. Next one, please, Colette. So just a few photos. You can just kind of scroll through these. So that's History Month, Welcome Day, Pride, Multicultural Festival, another really great event. And then so coming up, we will have a table at the youth gathering at the Friendship Center. So that'll be an opportunity, I think, just for reaching out and making some connections and potentially recruiting a little bit, hopefully. And then the Victoria Native Friendship Center hosts lunches every month. They've been shut down for quite a while over COVID, and it sounds like they're going to be getting started up again. So we're hoping to be able to host one of those lunches. As far as what we're doing within the committee, as I mentioned earlier, we've been looking hard at our membership and working hard at expanding our diversity on the community side of the committee. We also updated our onboarding process to make sure that it's a little bit more inclusive and welcoming to people, as opposed to feeling like a job interview, which not really. We want people to want to be involved and to bring information to us so that we can actually advise the area chiefs in terms of current issues. And then one of the other things that we want to work on this fall is just updating the website. It's a little bit dated in terms of language and some of the things that are going on. So I think that's my very quick update. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Before I turn it to the board, and I usually don't speak first, but I just really want to thank you for telling us all the things that are going well and all the things that still need work. I think you and the DAC have made yourselves very vulnerable by coming and presenting all of this information, giving us an honest assessment of everything that's being said out there, and then making recommendations. So just very sincere thank you. This is a high priority for the board, and I know it's a high priority for the community as well. And to see meaningful action being taken is really important, so thank you. Others may have questions and comments, but I wanted to just, on behalf of the board, share that with you. Sincere thanks. Charlotte.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming. I remember when you first stepped into this role, so it's exciting to have you here. I really enjoyed your presentation and the information that you shared. But I think more, I just really wanted to focus on the way that you communicated to us. And I think you did an incredible job because your presentation was really rooted in humility and continuous improvement and reducing hierarchy and being at the same level and space of people that you're serving and working with and learning from. And I was teaching a course at Royal Roads this morning, so it's fresh on my brain. But in this course, we were talking about different types of intelligence. So you have an IQ, which is like your intelligence quotient, but there's the EQ of your emotional intelligence, and then a CQ of your cultural intelligence. And I really feel that in this presentation, you hit all three. I am a product of 60 Scoop. So when you mention 60 Scoop, which doesn't always get mentioned, I found that also very inclusive. So I think you've done a really good job. And I think the words you chose and how you conveyed it is a greater demonstration to the work you're doing.
Thanks, Charlotte. Any other comments, questions? Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. Echoing what Lisa and Charlotte said, so I'll keep my points straight from outside repetitive. A couple of quick questions, perhaps some point of clarification. On the committee, do you know how many members do you have currently, roughly?
Roughly 26 between the police officers and the community members. So we have representation from all of the area police agencies, all the way up to Suk and all the way up to Sydney. So they're sort of roughly half-ish of the committee, and then the rest are community members.
Oh, great, thank you. And I think on this committee, it's civilians, as I say, and public and police officers. Is that correct? Okay. And there's people of color, there's people with different abilities, with experience, etc., on this committee as well.
Yeah, and again, you know, like I said, we're actually working on expanding a little bit. I think one thing that became really clear to me when we were doing the community consultation is that we do, I think we would benefit from having some representation on the DAC from people who do have, like I would say probably most of the people on the DAC, like we have people who started out as refugees. We have people who are LGBTQ, but I would say in terms of like socioeconomic status, I would say we're all pretty much on equal footing there. And I think, and while certainly some people have literally come to this country with nothing and had to rebuild from nothing, I think somebody who is currently experiencing homelessness or has recently experienced homelessness and has kind of had to go through the shelter systems and whatnot, I think we would benefit from that. So that is something that we're currently seeking.
And two more quick questions real quickly. If people want to find out more, is there a website?
There is, it's on the spot, I can't think of what it is. I think it's gbpdac.org.
I think Google that and it'll probably take it. Okay.
Yeah, it'll pop right up.
So folks want to get involved with the DAC or learn more about it, what website, probably the best place to go.
Yeah, we have a general email that comes directly to my inbox. And so I would say that's the best way to go with this. Just send us an email and it comes straight to me.
Perfect. And one last thing, you mentioned communication, meaning getting the word out in terms of what training some of the officers have, for example, in certain situations, where training they've done. Is there anything you feel the board can do to support you to help get communication out, word out as to what DAC is doing in the community, or what folks can use to support it? Basically, what can we do for you? So that's a general question.
Great question. And I think I would say when other committees are sort of being formed, like if we're communicating with other groups in the community who maybe don't feel that they have representation, it would be amazing if you would send them our way so that we could potentially onboard with the DAC. Or if other subcommittees are being struck, like I would say, I think that there's a lot of work being done that's similar to the work that we're trying to do. And so maybe, you know, send me or send Brenda or just go to the website and send an email through to the DAC because we would love to be included in those conversations. The thing that I found really interesting is even when I look at reports from other agencies, I feel like people generally kind of want the same things. They want places where they can feel included. They want to be considered. Like, I think people generally just want to feel respected and heard. And so we are working on initiatives that are kind of parallel to, I think, a lot of things that other people are working on. So if you're aware of a great cultural festival or something, then give us a show because we'd love to be there.
One final thing is that thanks for what you're doing, given the fact that we're, you know, in a COVID heightened period for a while, and now we're kind of transitioning to a new period. You folks have been doing this work sort of behind the scenes, and we haven't had much engagement in the community. Of course, a lot of people are, you know, on Zoom live. So the fact that you're getting put yourself out there still is great to see. The fact that you're still committed to doing that engagement.
Yeah, thank you. Deputy Chief, go ahead.
Very briefly, I just want to thank and acknowledge Staff Sergeant Ames for tremendous dedication and hard work for the work of the DAC. So thank you, Jen. It is a lot of work in addition to her day job as the Staff Sergeant in Executive Services and prior to that Watch Commander. So thank you. We very much appreciate it. The board appreciates it.
Thanks, and we're all doing it. It's too bad Brenda couldn't be here because she has definitely been there with me every step of the way. And of course, like, you know, with any group or organization, there are always the diehards, right? The people who show up for everything. So, you know, some of the people in those photographs are just unfailingly dedicated and passionate about what we're doing. So, yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
No, thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed it. Can you maybe through the chair, can we ask Colette to send out to the directors the website address?
Sure. Yes, Colette, will you send us the DAC website?
I can send it to Colette.
Okay,
So she doesn't have to search.
She's giving us her thumbs up. And then I think one of the things that we should have done, had we have known, is the board or the department could have issued a press release when the DAC won the award for community engagement at the Javi Awards. So we gotta get the word out about all the good work that's happening. So if you win an award again, please tell us right away,
Sure.
not 3 months later, and then we'll celebrate it in the moment. So
I'm not very good at trumpeting
I
that
know,
stuff, so.
I can tell, but make sure you do, because it's on behalf of lots of folks. So thank you thanks for your leadership. All right, that means we're gonna move on to something a lot less stimulating, which are the minutes from our July the 19th board meeting for adoption. Thank you, Doug. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Michaela. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Next, we have our Chief Constable update on page 4. I'm going to go to Deputy Chief Watson, who is standing in for the Chief Constable today. And Deputy Chief, if you don't mind stating why Chief Manick is absent and where he is, I think it's important for our community to know what he's doing. So please go ahead.
Yes, Chief Maddox is out of town today. He's is in Toronto, honoring the officer in Toronto Police Service that died in line of duty about a week or so ago. So he's there representing the Victoria Police Department and honoring his memory and his dedication to service in the city of Toronto. So. So with respect to the Chief Constable's report is in the package, outlines a lot of his activities of late. He's asked me just to provide a brief operational update. I won't go through the details, but there's been a number of community updates that we've shared with the board and the public over the past few weeks. And many of those investigations continue today, including an individual that was sustained gunshot wounds a few days ago. Another person who sustained a number of stab wounds in an attack on that individual in about the 1000 block of Pandora. One of our ident officers received injuries as a result of an assault when he was attending a crime scene the other night on September 15th. So lots on the go in terms of response to an investigation of crime in the city. One of the things that I did want to highlight is that response to crime is only one aspect of many response, current and contemporary police responsibilities. Just today, we issued a community update about one of those things that is not particularly uncommon, but it's an instance of a member of the public locating a large pool of blood on a sidewalk in Esquimalt. And the steps that officers took to track a trail of blood over 2 kilometers towards the downtown core, took a number of investigative steps to identify or get an image of that person who was injured, and ultimately locate and ensure that that individual received both medical care and mental health care. So, there's so many aspects of our work that's not focused just on law enforcement, but that's a broad umbrella of policing, and all the components that fall within it are things that, I like to try to highlight whenever we can. So I'll stop there. I know the chief will have more to say and more updates in the next meeting, but.
Thank you. Thanks for providing that. Any questions or comments for the deputy chief? And for the public, the activities that the chief has been engaged in, as well as the equity, diversity, and inclusion update, and that of course is the internal as well as external update. We move next to board committees, and I will turn to committee chairs to give their reports and or motions, starting with Doug in finance.
Thank you very much, Chair. I guess the item on our agenda here is the monthly financial report, and I would actually Steve to provide the highlights.
Okay, over to you, Mr. Verpon.
Sure, I'll just do it very briefly. The information's in the package. This is a monthly report, so for seeing these numbers. That report brought us 65% through the payroll year with a net financial position of 67.1%. So still running slightly above budget. There are 3 main contributing factors to this. The first one being salaries and benefits. This is temporary in nature, just due to the benefit load rates. That the benefit load rates are higher in the first half of the year, and then they go down. So we'll start to see that come down as we get into the later portions of this year. I expect that to fall back down to the budget. The other 2 are retirements. Retirements are $569,000 over budget. This is a difference that will likely be charged against the liability rather than coming out of our bottom line, our net operating bottom line, unless we have a surplus position. The last one being overtime. Overtime has been significant and has been a concern for us this year. We are starting to see patrol call-outs now starting to go down as our staffing levels have improved. We'll have to see what that, I'm going to do some projections and see what that's starting to look like. Unfortunately, we also did have an additional staff holiday this year we weren't expecting, so there'll be some additional costs for that as we have to have a significant number of officers working that day as well. Other items are mostly in line with the budget at this time. Capital expenditures are 83.7% of budget, but we expect that to remain within budget towards the end of the year. That was front-end loaded, mainly due to capital that was ordered in 2021, but didn't arrive on time. So I will be bringing a financial forecast in the next finance committee, and we'll go through those numbers and see where our forecast is.
Thank you for that. Doug, anything further?
I don't have further this time. Thank you.
Okay, next we will go forward to governance. Sean.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So we have a motion before us here, which involves myself. So I just wanted to, before I present the motion, I just wanted to say that there's a couple of wordsmithing things I want to edit. Where it says, for example, up front for the first quarter, the word quarter should be changed to half. And where it says for the second quarter, it should say half as well. You replace the word quarter half. This is more clear in terms of the force timeline. There's no quarters in the force, etc. So I just wanted to make it simpler, more efficient.
Okay, perfect. And you should probably actually recuse yourself from the meeting while we make this decision.
Exactly. I'm going to do that next time.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. Did you need me to speak to it at all? Or?
No, you can't. You're recusing yourself.
Right, I recuse myself.
Okay, so out you go.
I will.
Don't go far. Okay, thank you. So Colette, you got the proposed wording change, just for clarity. Would someone like, and the motion is that the board approve board member Dylan funding for his tuition for the Institute of Corporate Directors Education Program as follows: 500 upfront for the first half, and upon proof of successful completion of the first half, 500 upfront for the second half, and that those amounts are subject to repayment by board member Dylan upon non-completion of course paths, I guess it should say. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Okay, moved by Doug. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Michaela. Doug, can you speak to this just a little bit, just for the public and so that people understand what this is and why it's
I
here?
absolutely can. First, I am a graduate of this program. Institute of Corporate Directors is a well-renowned program. Provides a substantial amount of education on proper governance. And I believe that our board will benefit a lot from Sean's participation in this program, and I'm quite confident he will be successful. It's worth noting, although he doesn't say this in the motion, but he has asked for it, and subject to approval of this motion, we'll have providing him $1,000 funding. He will be personally investing close to $20,000 in this program, so this is not a gift. This is us acknowledging the contribution that we can make for him. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the other thing that's important to point out is that we looked at our committee level, his time on the board, I believe, goes out to the end of 2025 or 2026, and he'll be finished the course well before that. So the board as a whole will benefit from this investment that we're making in one of our directors. Yeah, Doug?
And
And then Paul.
I further add that the board will benefit from his education and experience as he goes through the program.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
I support this motion. Public may not know what a big job the governance chair is. So many things that come before the board first have to go through the governance committee. And the chair has to look and analyze lots of the material that come before the committee, filter it, analyze it, and explain it to us. There's no doubt that if this were specific training for $1,000 to go to a governance training course, we would send them there, and this one is going to be so much better. So I am 100% in favor of this. This is money well spent, and it will come back to the service of the police board and to the public in many fold, many times in addition.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. And we can get board member Dylan back into the room. Thank you.
Sean, I couldn't get it through.
No, it was approved. It was approved. Okay, I am going to go to, well, we didn't have an HR committee meeting last month. Charlotte, is there anything? Then that takes us to board chairs update. Just a couple of things. Barb and I met with Wayne Rideout, who's the director of police services, for our regular quarterly meeting. It was very helpful, and I think the thing that's most relevant to share with the board and the public is that they expect, without giving us firm timelines, to make a decision at some point soon on the Section 27 report, which is Section 27 decision rather, which in layperson's terms is the request that the board made to the government to make a ruling on whether or not the 10 additional staff positions in the 2022 budget are necessary and therefore should be paid for by both the city and the township. So he didn't say when exactly because he's still doing his due diligence, but for the public and the department to rest assured that that decision will come sooner rather than later. I think that's worth and important to report publicly because in the past, sometimes it's taken 18 months to get a decision. So really want to appreciate the work that police services is doing to turn this around in a timely manner. The only other thing I had in my update is a request for the board to write a letter similar to the one that's on page 16 of this report. Of this agenda package, requesting that Minister Farnworth, who's in charge of such things, include sexual violence training for people who receive the Serving It Right certificate. Before I make that motion, does anyone know whether that change has been made? I don't believe so, but I don't want to make a motion that is not necessary. So Deputy Chief, do you know?
I'm not certain.
Okay, yeah, Doug?
I was incorrect when I mentioned before. I thought that been brought up. What I was referring to, I think, was later on the agenda with the Minister Farnsworth letter regarding police standards and training.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I wondered, because I looked back in our emails from Colette and that is, yeah, and then I saw, okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, I don't.
Chair, I'm just gonna excuse myself from this discussion, it's something I dealt with at work. so-
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, good. We don't want any conflicts of interest. Okay, then, having said that, I will move, or I can't move because I can't make motions, but
I will make
please.
the motion.
Okay, the motion is that the police board write a letter to Minister Farnworth advocating to include sexual violence training in those training for the Serving It Right, or those taking the Serving It Right certificate. Thank you. That's moved by Paul. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Bella. Is there? Michaela, oh my goodness. That's okay. It's getting late. It's not actually late, it's getting long. And plus I was, in my head, I was one step ahead, like, okay, now it's
You
time
knew she was
to
gonna
invite
second
Bella
all
into the
motion.
room. Yeah, sorry about that, Michaela. Any discussion on the matter? Okay, and Colette, you can take some of the wording other than referring to the city's strategic plan. The background information is here in the letter to Minister Farnworth, so feel free to lift some of that and put it into our own words from the police board. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. All right, we're gonna get the Deputy Chief Dorman to do his job. That ends the co-chair's report, and I will turn to Charlotte, who is our representative and president of the BC Association of Police Boards, to give us her update.
Thank you. We just had our meeting on Friday, so fresh out of our BCA PB meeting. We received our feedback from our members on our conference in Surrey, which received some positive feedback from that. And right now we're working on just compiling some of the data, particularly from the World Cafe that BCAPB will be circulating to all of the boards. And we're hoping to be able to use that feedback and conversations at the conference to help guide BCAPB throughout the year. I've said this probably everywhere I go, so I'm sure people have heard this before, but an issue with BCAPB is to be on the BCAPB board. You also have to be a board member of the municipal police board, and generally to be on a police board, you have significant contributions to the community. So by the time we get to BCAPB, many of our members are tapped very thin, so we are working on implementing quarterly meeting requests. Quite often at BCAPB, we get different government ministries or agencies or organizations that want to present to us, which different board members, and often myself as president, take a whole lot of meetings. And for this, we're going to set up 4 dates quarterly and host them alternating in Victoria and Vancouver and offered by Zoom, and set them aside in our calendars. So when we have meeting requests, instead of our board members volunteering their time to meet other people's schedules, we'll have time blocked off in our calendar to coordinate those. So that is something that is exciting for us. And we'll be circulating those dates to different boards and government ministries and folks who ask us for meetings. And I think the last thing that we can mention is our board decided that for the 2023 conference, we will be hosting it in Nelson in May.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for that report and for all your work. And that is a very good efficiency measure to have people come to you. Any questions for Charlotte? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to board member engagement update. And this is an opportunity for any board members to share any work that they've been doing in the community as board members between board meetings, or any contacts that they've had, or anything that they feel is relevant to share in this public police board meeting. I'll just look for hands. Okay, thank you. The strategic priorities and the framework agreement are just here for our continuous checking in. There will be a new priority setting session that happens once the two co-chairs are in place and the new board essentially after the election. And so look forward to that happening. And that actually takes us nicely down to the next item, which is we are short one board member at this time, and the province has asked us, they have selected some candidates to be interviewed, and they've asked for a board member to volunteer to take part in those interviews and help to make a recommendation for our new colleague who will hopefully join us soon. So who would like to participate in that process? John, is there anyone else?
I would, but I'm no longer available.
Okay.
Mostly time shifts, but I can do the next one.
Okay, you're signed up for the next one. So Colette, will you make a note of that Sean can do this one and Michaela can do the next one whenever that arises? It's good to be able to actually, that's really good to, I mean, we don't know when another vacancy will come, but it is good to have two people lined up, because that way we don't run the clock out on the province waiting for us to get back to them with a name essentially. So Michaela or Sean this time, Michaela next time. I guess we better have a motion actually to appoint Sean to do the board interviews for this round, and Michaela's do the board interviews for next round, whenever that should arise. Moved by Doug, is there a second? Or seconded by Bella? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. October board meeting is listed here beside Mayor Desjardins' name, and that's why she and I were conferring a little bit while Sergeant Ames was talking, which I didn't like to do, but needed to get this sorted out with her before she left. So she advises, the reason her name is beside this is obviously October 18th is the next scheduled board meeting, I believe. Colette, is that right, or do I have that wrong? Is it October 25th, and am I just completely confused?
No, you're right. It's October 18th at this point.
Okay, so October 18th is 3 days after the next election. So the new mayor of Victoria, whoever that might be, will not be confirmed, and or the new mayor of Esquimalt if there is one. So it's a bit of a not necessary or effective to have a board meeting that day. So for the public, there will be no public board meeting on that day. And the next meeting will happen in November when both councils and mayors are sworn in, and there are two new co-chairs sitting here. So that's just an item of information. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Seeing none, the next items, the next item is the letter from Police Services re the training requirements with Inspector McRae's name beside it. So Inspector, do you want to give us an update or anything that you require from the board with respect to this item?
Absolutely. Nothing really that I require from the board. I just want to give the board confidence that we are, there's a lot that they've listed here, but we are well ahead of the game with each and every one of these topics. I'll just very quickly go through each of them. The first, frontline police officers must have taken the new intimate partner violence course effective by the end of this year. We rolled this out at the start of this year. Our cutoff date is November the 1st, and we anticipate all police officers in our police department, not just frontline police officers, will have completed that training at that time. Second on the list was the timetable around the major case management training, which is effective early in the new year. We have been expecting this actually for several years now. It got delayed because of COVID, so we have been in a position where we feel quite comfortable with this. All current detectives who are working in our investigative units are grandfathered for these different parts of the major case management model. However, we are still currently auditing a Vancouver, in fact, it happens to be on this week, auditing a Vancouver primary investigator course. We had previously developed our own course in the area of another aspect, of the major case management program, and we still run that and deliver that to other police agencies as well as our own. However, the primary investigator is something we didn't have in-house, and we're looking to bring that in-house if we can. Training to promote equitable, unbiased policing. So this was all police officers by July 30th, 2024 must complete fair and impartial policing. You may recall we were part of the development group on that program. We actually have the only master trainer in the entire province. And with having the only master trainer in the entire province, we have been asked to assist the province in actually training some additional trainers throughout the province. All police officers in the Victoria Police Department have been trained on this going back a couple of years ago, and is something that we still have as front and center for part of our training. Finally, there's one additional course, which is trauma-informed practice. We implemented it and mandated that in 2021, and all police officers at the Victoria Police Department completed that in 2021. And I believe in 2024, they will have to renew that certification, similar to crisis intervention and de-escalation, which has a 3-year cycle. But at this point in time, all of our police officers are trained in that. And then the last thing is to develop and build a training program specific to the Indigenous peoples of different regions. Obviously, the goal being something more local rather than just something more national. We are currently working with the Police Training Advisory Council, PTAC, which is run and coordinated by the province, to either determine if something will be developed provincially or if we will do that individually by police department, depending on which specific area they live in. We do have a fair bit of time on that, although not a ton, being midsummer of 2024. We are actively part of that conversation and then don't anticipate any concerns with us achieving that goal. That is all, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much for that, and good to see that we're ahead of the curve, and also that the province is requiring ongoing training in this in these areas. Do any board members have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much for that. The next 2 items here are just for the board's information. There is no no action rather required. That brings us to the end of the board meeting. Before we go, this is my last board meeting, and for members of the public, I was thanked earlier on, but I wanted to take the opportunity, and I appreciate all of the thanks from Mayor Desjardins on behalf of the board and from Deputy Chief on behalf of the department. And I just wanted to publicly say thank you to the board in its many iterations for all of the work over these years. It's been a real pleasure to serve on this board. And I will miss the thoughtful discussion and the wisdom and intelligence that is around this table at both the board level and the staff level, that we're all working hard and have been working hard through very challenging circumstances to both support the members of Vic PD and to support the community. So I'll leave those as my closing comments, and we'll see what happens next. And there'll be a new person here in this chair, and I wish them well. With that, I need a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Moved by Doug. Is there a seconder?